What's particularly difficult for this coalition to form is that there's so many different parties from right across the spectrum joining together to try to make a government that will oust Benjamin Netanyahu. He's been in power for 12 years, and while he didn't manage to receive a conclusive number of votes in order to get him back to that position again after this election, nor after the ones previous to that, he did manage to get enough votes that it's making their life difficult. So all these other parties, from the left to the right, and even including an Arab party, have to negotiate among themselves how to make a coalition that will hold, which will satisfy enough people within that party, both with concessions that each one wants for their party's agenda, but also in a way that they will be able to form a stable government that's actually able to govern for more than just a few months.
What will happen to Benjamin Netanyahu? You mentioned he's been in office for 12 years, Israel's eternal prime minister. What will happen to him now?
It's a very good question. Obviously, there are some who are saying that he should step down as the leader of the Likud party if the government doesn't include him as the prime minister. Though as we're getting closer and closer to that deadline tonight, there may be some who are still holding out hope that the opposition parties can't get their act together. That does seem unlikely still. And so if he finds that he's no longer the prime minister, he will have the option of stepping down and allowing somebody else to take over within the Likud. But he is still seen by very many within his own party and in other right-wing parties as the obvious leader of that bloc. He may choose to stay on and lead the opposition. That obviously will be something of a step down. And also, let's not forget that he is at the moment in court for corruption charges. He denies any wrongdoing, but that certainly could be seen as a distraction from his work. It may also mean that in a future election, if the so-called Change Coalition manages to form a government and then pass a law saying that you can't stand to be prime minister if you are up in court on these sorts of charges, well, he won't be able to be the leader taking them through into another election, which may yet happen quite soon because this coalition looks like it may be very weak.
One more on Isaac Herzog, if you may. The presidential role is largely ceremonial, right? But he has the power to grant pardons. Will he use that power?
The President of Israel is somebody who does do engagements around the world representing the country. It isn't meant to be too political, though the parties now trying to form a government do have to report to the president tonight, the sitting president, Reuven Rivlin, and they have to tell him whether they're able to command a majority in the Knesset, in the parliament, so that they can form a government. So in that respect, there is also a small degree of ceremonial power in helping to choose who is going to put together the next government. But Isaac Herzog is a politician who's respected for many years within Israel, even coming from a political family. And though he wasn't necessarily the most successful himself in parliament, he has now made it to that top spot of president.
All right, thank you, Jonathan Sacerdoti in Tel Aviv. Thank you again for this update.